Good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday, 2 o'clock here on the East. Cold and little rainy today here in Pickerington, Ohio, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk a little Ohio State football, recruiting, whatever have you. I'm getting a lot of grief from people that I have not done a good job about keeping up with this show, and I agree. I do agree. I've been pretty bad about it. Had a couple people asking me on another show to please go live, so here we are. Oh, hello, Mika. How are you doing? We may get 50 people on here. We may get 500 people on here. You don't know. Didn't really have a chance to advertise it, but we will just kind of see what happens. With whatever crowd we have will kind of dictate how long we go on the show. But I want to start getting into some good habits now that we're here in May. Um, Recruiting is taking center stage, but I'm going to try and hold off on getting to the crux of what I want to talk about until some people can get here. So if you're on the show, be sure to say hello, hit the bell, subscribe to the channel, all of that good stuff. It's one of those catch 22 situations. You get 20 seconds to grab a new viewer, and if you're talking about what you had for dinner last night, you might lose them. But if you sit there and you lead strong with, oh, well, this is what I'm hearing on this, and this is what I'm hearing on that, you're going to get to answer that question 15 times. So there's not really a situation that is always a win. But again, be sure to get your comments in there, get your questions in there, and we will get to them. We'll go 30 to 60 minutes. Kind of just depends on what happens. Depends if Jordan Kapler shows up to call me mean names. I'm looking forward to 2024 when he turns his year into somebody other than myself. But a lot of our usual suspects, I expect, will show up as they get the alert that we've just gone live. Um, big Buckeyes recruiting month coming up. Coaches can get on the road, check players out. I mean, it's a big thing. We get on the road. Won't get into any real specifics with that, but Mark Givler had the opportunity to head out to Southwest Ohio and hit several schools. I stayed back to work on some quote unquote office types of things. So, some things hopefully coming up here in the future at Buckeye Huddle. Be sure to sign up for Buckeye Huddle if you're not a member. And if you're not a member, why not? I just got a text message from somebody who was asking about later beers. Let me just tell him, never been there before. A lot going on with Jordan or Josh Simmons. I don't know why I keep calling him Jordan Simmons. I have no idea. Josh Simmons, the offensive lineman from San Diego State, committing to the Buckeyes. Had the opportunity to talk to Josh a little bit, just off the record. Didn't really get into football or the decision. This is a good opportunity now to get in and get to know a player because he'll get here in a month or so. We won't get to talk to him for a while, and we'll get into fall, and then you have to kind of reintroduce yourself. And again, you're not trying to be best friends with all of these players. That's just not the case. I'm 51 years old. They're 21 years old, 20, 19. Don't have a whole lot that I can talk about that's relevant to them, but you always want to have a situation of where they know who you are because when you do that, they're going to be more receptive to talk to you, more receptive to be open with you. I mean, I can only imagine what it would have been like at that age if these guys, if I would have had to talk to a bunch of 50-year-olds on the regular. Now, granted, I had zero athletic prowess once I got to college. Uh, I did talk to a couple schools about playing tennis, and that was certainly I it would have been a good opportunity, but they were D3 schools. I would have never been able, no athletic scholarships. Academic, wink wink will help you. Eh, it probably would have been fun, but then I wouldn't be doing any of this because I don't really think that there would be a lot of demand for a University of Laverne out in the valley in California. Uh, hold on, people just are hitting me. Let me kind of get on the questions because as we're going, Mika Hanna, who is always a big supporter of everything. Do we land Tywone Malone? Well, that is a good question there, and I see some more questions starting to come in. Uh, he is supposed to visit Miami this weekend. I think Ohio State feels like it has a pretty strong opportunity, a pretty strong chance. It was a very good visit with Ohio State and Tywone Malone, but he's supposed to visit Miami. And now we know that Miami certainly is aggressive when it comes to NIL. So Ohio State certainly would feel a lot better if it could just get Tywone to commit and not take the visit, or just not take the visit and think for a couple days. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think he still wants to go down there and check Miami out. And who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? I mean, you get the opportunity. He's a Jersey guy. He ends up kind of, in my opinion, inexplicably going to Ole Miss. Wants to play baseball there. Certainly, Ole Miss has a fantastic baseball program. Lane Kiffin is Lane Kiffin. I think that there was a lot of opportunities there. Didn't necessarily explode onto the scene, but that's okay. That's okay. He is pivoting to being more of a football player now. Baseball is kind of out of it. He is going to be much more unique, much more in demand as a football player than he would have been as a baseball player, in my opinion. I mean, I don't care if you're hitting 600 in college baseball, which he wasn't. It gets different once you leave the college ranks and you get into the minors and everything else. So Ohio State checks off a lot of boxes. Ohio State recruits well in Jersey. I mean, obviously within the Rutgers footprint, so on Big Ten footprint, it's all well and good, but you gotta sweat out Miami. So if we do a live show next week, I'll have a much better idea at that point. Right now, I'm gonna say definitely maybe, which is the biggest cop out in the world. But I don't have an opinion, and I don't want to lead Mika or any of you astray and say, oh yeah, they're definitely getting him, only to have to eat a you know what sandwich next week, or the other way around. I mean, if anything, it's safer to say you're not going to land a kid, and then when you do, everybody's so happy that you landed him, and nobody remembers you said the other way. So maybe I should do that, but I'm going to just take the coward's way out and say, maybe. Um, Hello to Glasswing Butterfly, OH there. We get a couple of IOs, an IO here too. Drowsy Dragon, can James Laurinaitis bring in Sammy Brown? I think that Ohio State is in a better position with James Laurinaitis kind of leading that than maybe. I'm not bagging on Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles is, the crafty old professor, not necessarily the master recruiter, certainly not somebody who it's not that difficult to go on to that youtube.com and find highlights of where James Laurinaitis certainly gives an opportunity. Now, I think Clemson's going to be tough to beat in a lot of ways, and I know everybody's like, well, he lives just a stone's throw away from Athens. He certainly does. His dad played at Furman, which is in South Carolina. I think Clemson is a school that certainly has an opportunity there. I'm going to be talking to Sammy here pretty soon, and I'll have a better idea at that point. So, can he? Yeah. I don't know what Ohio State's linebacker class is going to look like for 24. Or whatever, 24, I guess. They all start to run together after a minute. Um, I think there's an opportunity. I think Ohio State's probably a solid 3 right now. And I think that they can get him back on campus. Sammy has visited before. But if Ohio State can get him back on campus for an official, we'll see. Show him the love. James Laurinaitis can certainly say, well, look, this is what I did, and this is my plan, as I'm not necessarily one of the 10 coaches at this point, but I think that we're going to see that sooner or later, or that the NC2A is going to change its policy in terms of how many coaches can actually coach. And to get ahead to Tara P's question, who is Sammy Brown? He is a linebacker out of North Georgia, near Athens. Tremendous wrestler. He's like a three-sport guy. He's got a lot of upside. I mean, my biggest question is I wanna see more of the football. He's a guy that goes to a camp and is a testing freak. He exudes athleticism. I just wanna see a little bit more on the football field, and that's not saying that his tape isn't impressive. His tape's impressive. I just like to see the development from year to year. Definitely a high four-star guy in my opinion, though. Let me start getting through some questions as I bog down. Nate, which guys should be eligible to grad transfer after the semester? I know we all want to sit there and talk about who's transferring in and who's transferring out, and I'm much more comfortable talking about transferring in than transferring out because even though Nate is not asking me who do you think is transferring out, if I start talking about potential grad transfers out, then I start to associate transferring with the name of a player, and that's just not fair to the player. Um, so you have to kind of look, and it's even more difficult to figure things out because of the COVID year not costing a year of eligibility, and guys can if they're really motivated can get their undergrad degree in 3 years with the way that athletic priority scheduling works, and a lot of their classes are online, and that's not an Ohio State thing. That's just a collegiate thing at this point for athletes. So, I haven't necessarily kept up with the coursework of where all these guys stand in terms of their graduation, whether or not they graduated in January, or if they're going to graduate in June, or I guess May is the way that the calendar works now. So I don't know. I will say this because I think this is the core point of where we're getting at. Ohio State's not going to be over 85 when it can't be over 85. Period. What's the penalty for that? I'm not sure. Ohio State did have one year where there was the NC2A kind of did a pullback on how it works, and I think that once once your summer enrollees are on campus, I think that the deadline is earlier to be at 85, and I think Ohio State kind of ran into like a little bit of like a level 2 issue or something. Ohio State's not going to try and play with 86 or 88 or 90. And honestly speaking, the guys who depart or medically retire or whatever, that's on them and that's their decision, and you just kind of go forward with it at that point. So I have no worries that Ohio State's not going to get its roster numbers fixed. None at all. Ohio State's still being aggressive in the portal. Obviously, Tywone Malone, we talked about him a minute ago. There is a UAB defensive back who's supposed to be taking an official visit, according to one of the national guys. Has Ohio State in his top 6. I don't know if Ohio State necessarily is 1 or 2 for him at this point, but we shall see. But for every guy you bring in, somebody has to leave, one way or the other, whether it's through the portal, medical retirement, whatever you may have there. So, we'll see on that. Jay Moore, any thoughts on how you think the 23 class fills needs next year? And then I saw he jumped in and said 24. Let me throw a star on that one. That's a long answer, and I don't know if I've got a great one. I will try to get back to that one. Mika, when do you think defensive recruitment picks up? Soon. I think that they have a lot of guys who are kind of on the hook and just haven't announced or close. But the thing is, Ohio State's out there recruiting the top of the top of the top, and a lot of times some of these guys want to drag it on. I mean, what happens if Ohio State, and I think Michigan fans are going to disagree, they feel really good about Aaron Scott, but if Ohio State has Aaron Scott and Bryce West, the 2 corners, I think people are feeling a little bit better. I think the big question mark is, what is the defensive line going to look like? And I defer to Mark and I defer to Alex because they are the guys who follow this, a lot closer than I do on a daily basis. So I don't necessarily have that daily interaction in terms of knowing where some of the names are, but it's going to pick up. I mean, I promise you, this class will come together. I'm not promising that every player that's your favorite is going to end up in the class. That just never happens that way. But I think that they've taken some steps in the right direction. They're sitting in good position with a lot of kids right now. 24 should be fine. Hello to you. Where goes one as well? Steven, do you expect more defensive rotation, more snaps for the second team overall this season? I would like to see it, but conversely, how many times did we hear people did we hear podcast hosts say, "Why are the best guys not playing more when it comes to the defensive line rotation?" So, you can sit there and say, "All right, play JTT, sorry, JT Tuimoloau, and Jack more." Well, if you do that, you're going to be playing Kenyatta Jackson and others less. If you're playing Kenyatta Jackson more, you're going to be playing JT and Jack less. So there's got to be a happy medium there. I think that you have to make sure that your best players are out there in your biggest moments, in your highest leverage of moments. Yes, you do need to play your young guys. You do need to have experience. I mean, Ohio State could, if Ohio State wins it all this year, and it's a big if. Even though the odds makers really like their chances, you just don't know at this point. If Ohio State wins it all, Ohio State honestly could lose no less than its top four defensive linemen. Jack will be draft eligible. JT will be draft eligible. Tyleek will be draft eligible. Mike Hall will be draft eligible. And we kind of saw what happened in 15 after Ohio State won the title in 14, and some guys got a little fat and happy with their title. And a team that honestly probably should have won it all didn't. So I think that, I think in terms of maybe the offense is where I think you want to see a little bit more rotation. People get really concerned about not seeing the backup quarterback getting to run the offense. I think that's kind of important at some points. If you're going to put 77 up on a team, why not let 28 of them come from your backup running the real offense? I think that we want to see more rotation out of receiver. But again, do you want to take Marvin off the field, Emeka off the field? Do you want to take those types of guys off the field to get Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and Rogers and whoever sticks from the 22 class of receivers, which right now I guess is Antwi and Grays. You got to figure it out. So for everybody that you sit there and you take off the field for the rotation, that's less plays for the starter. And in some cases, that's okay for guys that have played a lot of football, but there are going to be some people out there too that haven't played a ton. And I know Ryan Day has been a big proponent of playing these guys to get them the reps. So Stephen Harvell, I've probably not answered your question, but have given you a kind of stream of consciousness of the decisions that have to go in there. Mika, I would never be mad at you for just giving your opinion. I know things change, especially in recruiting. Yeah, absolutely with that. Let me keep going down here. Sammy looks like another big cat. Sammy isn't as big as Big Cat. Big Cat was just a big dude. Sammy, though, here's the issue. You just don't know. And I'm going to do something I never do. And I'm going to talk about a recruit that didn't work out. And my apologies in advance. And I see a super chat, and I'm going to be getting to that here in a minute. Thank you so much for that. I promise. Let me get to Drowsy's point here. You could have Big Cat on one end of the spectrum. You could have Mike Mitchell on the other end of the spectrum. Just never worked out for Mike Mitchell. There were some red flags. Transferring out of one of the Plano high schools to go to Friendswood Christian Academy. Generally go the other way around. You move up. You don't move down. Nothing just really worked out in terms of any of the Mitchells. They brought in Mickey in basketball. That didn't work out. I'm not saying Sammy Brown is Mike Mitchell at all. At all. But I am hesitant sometimes with all the platitudes of a high school guy and not knowing what's going to happen there, of saying this guy is going to be the next whoever, especially at like linebacker, because how does that high school team run its defense? Does it funnel everything toward its Mike? What does that look like at that point? I mean, is it a situation of where, who are they playing and so on and so forth? There's a lot of things there that you just don't know. Sammy can go to any camp and win the camp. Just plain and simple. That's just my opinion. He is an athletic freak. If Nike still does that Spark rating, he could probably break records there. That's just what he is. and he's a hell of a football player. But we'll see. We'll see. Here we go. Auburn. I'm Auburn fan, but Ohio State's my second favorite team. Well, thank you. Are you out in the plains or are you somewhere else? I've been close to Auburn, Alabama before few times, but I've never been on that campus. I've been on the other major campus in Alabama. Uh, but we'll see. We'll see. What are your thoughts there about the coaching change, about everything else that's going on with Auburn? My only real Auburn story that I can tell is, let me close my email that is beeping at me. Um, when I was an intern at CNN Sports in 1994, there was a very, very attractive young lady who lived close to me, and she would give me a ride into CNN because I didn't have a car during my internship. Wonder whatever happened to her. She was very nice, but I digress. Ryan Dawes. Oh, and I said I was going to get to that super chat. Where's my head? Ryan Dawes with the super chat. That's what made me think of it. Does James Laurinaitis get promoted to full time before the end of the season? I know someone would have to be fired. No pressure. Well, I think the term full time is a little misleading because James Laurinaitis, I can assure you, is working more than 40 hours a week. I know you mean full time as in being one of the 10 coaches who could go out on the road and some things like that. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point, and again, I don't know what the logistics are here, but if at some point they put James on the road and took Jim off the road, but can you do that and still not create confusion as to these are our 10 coaches? Because I know what happens is they can get special dispensations. Like Keenan Bailey went on the road before he was the tight ends coach, but they had to get like special. They had to park somebody, and I don't know if I don't remember all of the logistics of how that works out. Now, the truth of the matter is James can do almost everything that he needs to from his current role. Do I expect James Laurinaitis not to be a full-time, to use Ryan's term, coach for 24? No, they're going to figure this out. They're going to figure it out. Ohio State's been waiting for 2 years for the NC2A to change the numbers. Sure, more official visits. That's fine. Sure, we're not going to regulate NIL. That's fine. Transfer portal, chaos, whatever. But NC2A can't seem to get around to figure out this coaching thing. I think it's because there's probably a lot of blowback from smaller programs that, even though they would love to have more guys on the road, I don't think they want Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia to have unlimited staffs, or or at least move the fence much further back. I don't think that they want to see that. I don't really know why it keeps getting tabled. That is my assumption, but we shall see. But no, I don't see anybody getting fired between now and the end of the season. Um, but maybe some of the deck chairs could be reshuffled. I don't know. I don't know how they'd want to do that. I do think that there is a risk of, okay, Jim Knowles may not be the most prolific recruiter. That's fine. What kind of message is it if your DC doesn't go on the road? If you don't have your DC out recruiting, does that send a negative message? Does that give red meat to your opponents, your recruiting opponents, to say they're hiding their DC? What's wrong with them? Why are they hiding their DC? It's not going to be oh yeah, they want to sit there and get this, young buck out there, James Laurinaitis, to get out there and look like he could line up and play football tomorrow type of situation. It's, why is Ohio State hiding its DC? So, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you sit there and you look at Ohio State staff, and there are a lot of great recruiters. I mean, do you sit there and do you take Parker Fleming off the road? What is not necessarily going on the road to do a lot of special teams recruiting. Ohio State does positional and territorial recruiting, though. I don't know Parker's off the top of my head. I know everybody's got at least a stake in Ohio, but I don't know what his expanded territory is. That could be an option. Again, I don't know, but Ryan, to finish on your question, I don't see that type of change being made now. Not by the end of the season. Certainly not when you get in the season. Ugh, that just seems to be nightmarish if you get to that point. But I expect this to be a short term issue, and that they're going to get some things figured out one way or the other. I mean, and the thing too is, if Ohio State has a successful season, coaches will be in demand, and you may be able to still stay within the 10 head count without having to do a lot of mental gymnastics and shuffling. So, you just don't know. So we don't know what we don't know. Um, that's kind of where that one is at. But once again, thank you so much for the super chat. It certainly helps us here at the channel, helps us with Hungry Huddle. It helps us with travel, things like that. So if you ever want to sit there and get a direct line to me, the super chat is the way to go, or on any of our great shows here on the Buckeye Huddle channel, including Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, the Buckeye Weekly Podcast, Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, all of that great stuff. Actually, I just noticed I have the wrong branding up for this show. I have my other show. There we go. It's Big Me Kickoff, folks. Don't know what was up with that last time I recorded. Let me see where I was here. Doug's like happy that I showed the initiative to do a show. I know. Go live, you cowards. I know. I get into the point of where I'm like, I don't feel like I have anything all that exciting to talk about. Well, I live with these thoughts 24/7. That's it. I mean, you guys don't get to talk to me, don't get the direct access with me all the time. So I have to remind myself, just because I bore myself doesn't mean I bore you. Maybe I do. I don't know. Jelani Thurman is a beast. Auburn really wanted him to. And Jelani, there was a lot of concerns Auburn was going to flip him. There really was. But Auburn has flipped kids from Ohio State, Can Lee being one of them. It's if Ohio State's going to go down there into the South, I'm not necessarily going to call Georgia the deep South. I sit there and think Alabama, Mississippi, a lot of parts of Louisiana. That's deep South to me. But if Ohio State's going to go into Georgia, it's going to have to swing with the rest of the SEC and all of these programs. So it's difficult. I think Thurman is just kind of different than what they've had at linebacker or at tight end for a while now. And that's not taking anything away from the Vannettes and the Hiremans and the Ruckerts and the Baws of the world. But Jelani's he's just cut different. He's just cut different. And I would expect him to be vying for some decent playing time this season. Maybe not right out of the gate. But you sit there and you have Cade Stover, and then nobody's really emerged. Mitch Rossi's gone. You have Joe Royer, who did see some action, especially when Cade got hurt in the Peach Bowl. You got Sam Hart. You got Bennett Christian. Neither of those guys have necessarily seen a lot of playing time. With Bennett, he's just going into his second year, redshirt freshman. Sam's a year older, but it's not like Jelani's having to navigate through 4 other tight ends that are all experienced. This isn't the Georgia tight end room where they had Brock Bowers and they had Darnell Washington and Oscar Delp had some playing time and so on and so on. I think there's a real opportunity, and if Jelani keeps progressing the way that he has, it's going to be hard not to get him out there. So we'll see. We'll see what the room looks like at that point. Billy Tuesday, I believe players can still enter the portal if the university signs off. I think that's it too. I was talking with Tony Gerdeman about it because I just didn't want to talk about ketchup. And I think the belief is that, yeah, you can go in, but the university has to sign off for like immediate eligibility. The portal allows you to transfer without the penalty of sitting. Again, I think that they just keep rewriting the portal rules as we go. So I'm not sure. And then grad transfers can transfer regardless of the portal. So if you to get back to the earlier question of kind of asking Who could be capable of doing that? Well, if we look that we look that through, I kind of knew where we were going with that. Doug, if a player graduate, that means they're no longer on scholarship, so they can stay at the same school without counting toward the 85. No, you are still on scholarship. The way that you can not count against the 85 and remain on scholarship is if you medically retire. Somebody asked about Avery Henry. I may have blown past that one. He's still going through and battling cancer, and we certainly send all of our thoughts and prayers and everything that we can to Avery during this trying time. But I don't know. I don't know what the prognosis is in terms of if he's going to be able to play football. We'll just use him as an example because obviously what he's going through is public knowledge. It's not like I'm breaking a confidence here. If the doctors and Avery decide you need to spend the next couple years focusing on your health and chemo and radiation and whatever you need to do, and football probably is not in your best interest, he could medically retire, which means he drops off of the 85. He would still stay on scholarship, though, in terms of the university paying for his education. Harry Miller medically retired. Harry Miller retired. He is still with the team, still enrolled at Ohio State. All of that is there, but he is not playing. Now, I certainly have seen guys medically retire somewhere and then end up elsewhere. And I'm trying to remember Frank Apatropoulos medically retired from Ohio State and then somehow like unretired and ended up at Michigan State. Now, I don't know how that necessarily works. I don't think you can medically retire to like, oh, we're going to medically retire you for a year and then we'll bring you back. You can't do that. So I don't know the finer points of that one, but graduating doesn't matter. I mean, there are plenty of guys, if you're there 6 years, you're doing grad school. You're doing grad school earning master's degrees. So you're still on scholarship, you still count toward the 85. There's not a workaround on that. The only way that people come off of there is if A, they transfer, B, they medically retire, or C, they just, I guess, just drop out of school or something. I don't know. So, hope that answers that question for you. There was the Avery Henry again. I'm trying to like look ahead at points, but I don't want to miss questions along the way. We've already gone 30 minutes. I always worry that we're not going to have anything to talk about, and here we are. Here we are. We'll reset. Thank you for joining me here on the Big Me Kickoff. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode. We just crossed 9,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much to everybody who's part of that. 9,000. Now, I want to get us to 10 here pretty soon, but 9,000 is nothing to sneeze at, nothing to cough at. That is great. It just shows how much you all love your Buckeyes, and I know that there's some people on here that love to hate the Buckeyes, and I haven't seen Justin Courtney and some of these, and oh God, who's the guy who can't talk? Oh, I can't think of his name right now, but his posts were always insane. But thank you so much for that. And if you're listening to us on a podcasting platform, leave us a 5-star review, please. That will help us be distributed to more people out there. Into that plug. Yeah, Therapy. Big Cat was like 6'5", 260. I remember him coming out of high school, but that was like a million years ago, so I don't remember a lot of particulars other than the fact that I was like, God, I'm glad I don't have to play against a kid like that. Mika asking, do we land Booker Pickett Jr.? I'm going to give you the same cop-out answer. I don't know. I like where Ohio State stands. I think Ohio State made a big move when Pickett visited, and I think that helps Ohio State a lot. Gun to my head, I'm going to say quite possibly. That's about as positive I'm just going to get. If you ask me like about Demarion Witten, I'd be like, yes, they're getting him. Because I feel supremely confident there. Booker Pickett Jr., you're dealing with kids from Florida, getting pulled in a lot of different directions. Ryan Pickett can only influence nephews so much. A lot of things can happen. I mean, there's a difference between being a kid in Tampa and being a kid in South Florida in terms of the wackiness of where recruits go or how recruitments go. So I surely think so. But those of you who have been longtime subscribers, either at Buckeye Huddle or my previous stop at Buckeye Grove, know that in the spring we do some traveling. I'm still at home right now, but stay tuned. Stay tuned. And, we'll probably talk to a lot of your favorite players and your favorite targets out there while we're on the road. But once again, another reason why you want to make sure you're on Buckeye Huddle. Absolutely. Please check it out because we're going to have a lot of great stuff coming up over the next month or so. Drowsy Dragon says we're really lucky to have James Laurinaitis. Yeah, I think so too. I still don't understand the disconnect that happened when Laurinaitis kind of got to this decision that he wanted to get into coaching, and that Ryan Day didn't seem to, I don't know, be as quick about it as James would have liked, and he went to Notre Dame for a year. That was strange, seeing pictures of him wearing Notre Dame gear. Now, I will say this. I think in terms of any coach's development, being within multiple systems, multiple organizations is very important. So you get the opportunity to see how some things work and things of that nature. No, I'm not trying to push any of Ohio State's current coaches out of the nest. I'm not doing that. But bringing him back, you've got to figure is not a lateral move. And maybe it's a lateral move for 23 in some regards, but it's not going to be a lateral move moving forward. Yes, Ohio State is printing money in a lot of ways and is probably not going to get outbid for a lot of coaches that it wants to have. But are there guardrails in place in terms of what you can post an analyst or a GA or a QC, quality control coach? I mean, I don't know. But I think that it is a huge hire for Ohio State, and I think that James Laurinaitis is going to do a lot, not only in terms of recruiting, but I think he's going to be solid in terms of development. I know Jim Knowles likes working with the linebackers. I think that being able to free him a little bit more from some of just the daily positional stuff will go a long way in terms of him being in the laboratory, coming up with alternatives to cover zero. So, we'll see. Therapy. I live in Birmingham. Lots of my family is in Auburn or Auburn grads and fans. I'm super excited to see what the new coaching regime can do. I think we're 2 years from really contending, though. I think that it's going to have to be a good infusion of portal plus recruiting. I think that both of those are going to have to be there. I think there certainly are some shortcomings that happened under the Harsin regime that they're going to have to fix. But if Auburn becomes a hot name on the recruiting trail again, it has a lot of the built-in advantages that the upper tier teams have. Now, of course, one of the downsides is it shares a state with the Crimson Tide, but Alabama can't take them all. And I think certainly I'm really curious to see what the SEC looks like with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. How do they parse that out in terms of who are your yearly plays, everything else? I think it's a really exciting time to be one of the top end teams in the SEC. And I think that Auburn certainly has the potential of getting there, but Auburn has to just kind of stay out of its own way. And a lot of that I just think was an ill-advised hire of Brian Harsin, who I still think is a pretty decent coach, but just because you worked well at Boise State doesn't mean you're going to work at Auburn. Just because you worked well at Louisiana Lafayette doesn't mean you're going to work at Florida. I mean, you just don't know. But I don't want to turn this into too much of an Auburn show. I will say that on my other show, which I need to do a little bit more often, the Best Noon Sports Show, period, we take more of a national view. I've moved that over to our college football playbook channel. So be sure to check us out there at youtube.com/CFB playbook. Sign up there. We just got monetized there. Very excited about everything going on there. So again, that gives us an opportunity to do some new things, some special things, as we have a little bit of money to be able to throw into that. So There you go. Let's switch it back to the current show. Um, just finishing up there. Mom was from Gallia County, so I have family there too who are Buckeye fans and some WVU fans. Absolutely. Football crazy around there down by the river. Certainly WVU, probably some Marshall thrown in there too. I have a lot of friends that are Marshall alum. So it's exciting. I just love talking about football. I rarely have a smile on my face, but when I get to come on here and talk about it, I certainly have a smile here. Nate, our special teams are not special. Why aren't we calling for Parker Fleming's job head? What has he done? I'll let you in on a little secret. A lot of fans have been calling for his head. Um, that doesn't mean that Ryan Day has to listen to any of that, but I think a lot of people figured that Parker Fleming might follow Kevin Wilson to Tulsa or something like that, and that James Laurinaitis would end up as the 10th assistant. And I certainly think this is an important year for Parker. I like Parker. I don't know him that well. You know, you sit there and you hang out at OSU events with certain coaches that you have history with, and I love sitting around talking like with Tony Alford and Larry Johnson and guys like that. I don't have a ton of FaceTime with Parker. I think that this is a year that Ohio State has to execute better. Has to execute better. Ohio State had some great special team plays set up and 3 quarters executed, except for the 1 quarter that executed poorly. Whether it was Georgia calling the timeout on the fake punt, but Ohio State still managed to have 12 guys on the field, or any sort of trickeration against that team up north. It doesn't mean jack if you can't run the play cleanly. It doesn't matter. And then the issue is that you only have so many of those, so many bullets in the chambers. Once you show something, it's gone generally. You're not going to sit there and be able to say, well, this worked week 3, let's run it week 5. Once you put it on tape, it's there. Now, I guess if you play a really poorly, coached, undisciplined team, it doesn't really matter. You can just run it over and over again. Here we go. Drowsy Dragon. Will Trevion Henderson be the starting running back or Mayan Williams? Let me ask you this one, Drowsy. Does it matter who the starter is? If Trevion, Mayan, and Chip each get 11 carries, 33 carries right there. Apologies to Dallin Hayden. Apologies to Evan Pryor. But let's just say that that's where it is. Does it matter who gets carry 1 in the game versus who gets carry 8 in the game? I think that there are going to be certain games of where maybe a certain back is better suited to go against them. I think you're going to have a situation of where who's the healthiest. I mean, you go into the season hopefully as healthy as you're going to be. You're not getting healthier going through games. Going through the violent sport of football, you're not getting healthier. You don't generally get a ton healthier during the open week. So, you sit there in game 1 against Indiana. Let's say that's a heavy dose of Trey. Week 2, maybe you sit there and you mix it up and you start Mayan against, I believe that's Western Kentucky that week. I'm not sure. I know they go conference, and then 3 straight weeks of non-conference with Notre Dame being week 4 of the season. I don't know if it's as important who starts the game. They're certainly going to ride the hot hand. And I don't think we're going to see games that are going to be 11-11-11 or 9-9-9-2. If somebody's playing well, I think you got to ride that player. And it's going to change from week to week. But I just don't get too caught up on starter, because this isn't like offensive line. If you come out and you are the left guard, you're only coming off the field under a couple of circumstances. You get hurt, which we don't want to speak into existence, or the game's a rout, and you sit there and you bring in your number 2 line. Now, people have certainly brought up the question, well, could Ohio State try and trot out a number 2 line just to get some experience? We certainly saw that, I believe, under Jim Tressel, that they would come out there and they would run their second team line like in the first half of the game for like at least a series, maybe 2 series. I think with the struggles that Ohio State's had getting its best five put together, let's worry about getting a first team put together before we worry so much about the second team. Now, I think you can get away with that against your non-conference foes, against maybe your lesser Big Ten teams. You're, you're not doing that at Michigan. You're not doing that at home against Penn State. You're not doing that at Wisconsin. So, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that one. Billy, if Knowles really isn't out on road, not a good sign. Well, again, I'm speaking hypotheticals here. I don't want to get a call from Jerry Emig, from Mark Pantoni, anybody there. It's like, so I heard you were saying this was going to happen. Where are you coming up with these fictitious ideas? No, I'm just saying hypothetically, in order to get James Laurinaitis out on the recruiting trail where I think he absolutely needs to be. Mika Hanna, who's the third wide receiver in 2024. It's Jeremiah McClellan out of St. Louis, in my opinion. I really like where Ohio State sits there. I know he was recently up at Oregon. I think he's still going to go through some of the recruiting game, but I think Ohio State lands Jeremiah McClellan. I think we're seeing the deck clear in terms of, we've seen half of the 22 class opt for the portal with Caleb Burton and Caleb Brown. I think we're done kind of seeing there. I think that, I saw some really good flashes from Kojo Antwi and Keon Grays during spring football. Then obviously you have the 4-man 23 class. Ohio State's just going to keep stacking players. And, I think Jeremiah McClellan's certainly in there. And then, do they take 4? I mean, there's some great options out there. I think everybody certainly wants them to go after Micah Hudson out of Texas. I don't think he leaves the state. I really don't. You can't land everybody. But when you have Brian Hartline as your recruiter, and since he's a recruiting witch, you kind of expect success every single time. Well, they're going to be guys that you miss out on. But he's going to land guys you don't expect to. But, we'll see. We'll see on that one. See here. Do you think Ennis can work his way into the rotation by the Michigan game from Steven? I don't know. Can Brandon Ennis, I know he doesn't play the same position as Carnell Tate. Who from the 24 class is going to be the guy? And nothing is going to be limited to just one player. And I know that it's a matter of, are you a slot? You play outside, X, Z, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think something that I'm very curious about is what is Xavier Johnson's recovery like? He's been on, he's had the little busted leg scooter thing going on, didn't play in the spring game. I don't think that it's necessarily going to be a long-term thing, but I don't know a ton about that one. What is Ohio State certainly wants to get Marv his catches. Ohio State would love for Marv to get the Blitnikoff Award he was so wrongly denied last year. Wouldn't mind having him as a Heisman candidate. Emeka, certainly, somebody who could be in his last year. Then, you get the Julian Fleming, Jaden Ballard, who's kind of the big receiver at that point. And then where do things stand at that point? What do things look like there? I worked into the rotation to me really makes it sound like he's out there getting, running as many plays as quote unquote the ones. I don't think we're going to see a situation there, but I think we could certainly see Ohio State have some things out there and ready. But I'm not really keen on taking Marv and taking Emeka off the field in the biggest game of the regular season. I'm not, I don't want to be a big proponent of doing that for huge stretches if avoidable. I think what's most important about 11-25 is that Ohio State is able to have a consistent running game, because I think once that happens, that makes everything else in the passing game much more obtainable. But if the running game, if everybody's hurt and the line isn't getting any push and the running game is non-existent, I've seen that movie. I've seen it twice. I've seen the sequel. It sucked too. So a lot going on with that. Mika saying Peyton Pierce is going to be a beast eventually. I really like Peyton Pierce. I agree on that one. Dave Rice, if getting your if getting your top 5 OL on the field is the goal, here's mine. Left tackle Donovan Jackson, left guard Josh Fryer, center Matt Jones, right guard Tegra Shabola, right tackle Josh Simmons. Here's what I'm going to say on that. And I've got my opinions, and I'm not going to die on this hill. I'm not digging my heels in. Just my opinion. I really would prefer to see Donovan Jackson at guard. I think he's a guard at the next level. I think you play him where he best fits in. Now, conversely, if you don't have any tackles and you're concerned with all of that, then you need to solve that. So I don't know. I'm gonna jump to the Matt Jones situation. Yeah, I think Matt Jones probably would be a good situation center. I think that part of him coming back was that I really do believe he wants to play guard. I really believe that. Now, they're all team guys, and you get out of spring and you reassess. It's like, man, you could really do us a solid by moving into this position. I did not feel that Carson Hinsman had a bad spring. He's young. He's still learning to snap. We didn't see Jacob James. There certainly were some things going on there, but I think that they could be fine with Carson Hinsman, especially if you feel that your guards are solid with Matt Jones on one side and Donovan Jackson on the other side, and you really shore up your interior offensive line. I think Simmons is probably going to be the right tackle. Does that move Fryer to left tackle? Do you feel good about that situation? I mean, again, he's somebody who was out there playing left during spring. There obviously were some concerns, but you have Zen Mahalski and you have Tegra Shabola. They're all vying for that position, and nothing is given from week to week. I sit there and I look at Dave's list, and I think on paper, looking at it from top down, that's a solid line. But I think you have a couple guys out of position in terms of Donovan and Matt, and I don't know. I mean, again, these guys want to win games. They want to get out there. They want to excel. It's all going to kick in. But I don't know. What if I know there are a lot of people concerned. They see Josh Simmons' PFF grades, which I have also seen PFF grades that had like Jack Cohn as one of the most efficient passers or something like that, and by their metrics. And look, I like the guys at PFF. I know a couple of them. We don't talk about certain rankings that I don't like with them. I just pass that by. I'm like, I'm not bringing that up because you guys are drunk. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to get as caught up in some of that stuff. There still are production things that you can see when you watch Josh Simmons' game. I think that he's going to be in a better situation at Ohio State, but he's also going to be in much deeper water playing at Ohio State than he was at San Diego State. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes along, but that's still Simmons can't play both tackle positions at the same time. So somebody's going to have to step up into that other one. And I don't know if the Donovan Jackson talk to tackles because, well, he is one of our most experienced offensive linemen, and therefore we need to put him out there or people really see a tackle out of him. And I just don't know. I mean, in this scenario, you're putting Jackson out there and then you're putting Fryer inside where Fryer may work a little bit better, at least in the thoughts of many. I don't know. I hope I answered the question somewhat and just didn't make it more cloudy. Let me keep scrolling through. Hey, Jay Moore, thanks a lot. Bronco is our Michigan brother in arms who really doesn't like to speak in proper English at all. Yes, King Bronco. Hello to Sue. I'm glad you could make it. I'm going to start trying to do this more often. Yeah, Kevin, whatever. You're so FOS. You say that you're going to, do your show more and then you don't. I know. Again, maybe I need some hypnosis to convince me that what I have to talk about is compelling. I just don't want to sit there and bore you guys and then be talking to myself. Here we go here. Glasswing Butterfly, proud to be in the first wave of Buckeye Huddle subscribers. And Glasswing is a fantastic subscriber, by the way. A great contributor on the Huddle message board. Always has great insight, great posts, great creative topics to talk about. You too can be like Glasswing Butterfly and check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. A lot of people here get jumping in with King Bronco, so I know where I am kind of in terms of comments, where I stand, but I'm almost caught up here. Mika hopes that Jaden Ballard plays more. Oh boy, I just saw about somebody who posted that I'm going to get to his question next. God help us. Hope Jaden Ballard plays more and we can rest the starters so they're not burnt out by the end of the year. That goes with the young guys too. You know, I really think this is a year that Ballard breaks through a little bit. Guys are going to need rests. I mean, you can't sit there and run a triple move, whatever, and run 60 yards out there and then jump back out and expect to be fresh. So, I mean, there is a good cycling and wave changes, but are you running 11? Are you running 12? I mean, how many receivers can you have out there? I trust the offense with Brian Hartline and Ryan Day in terms of personnel. I do. Yes, I have my issues with the quarterback rotation in terms of here you are, put the ball on the 5 of Dallin Hayden. We're going to run him off tackle, and that's all we're doing. I don't particularly like that. If a team is so soft that having 70 points scored against them is going to break and damage their psyche, I don't know what to tell you. You don't want a team to score on you, will stop them. Now, I also think just sitting there and going full Tecmo Bowl and just, trying to go Georgia Tech against Cumberland and put up 200 and something points. Okay, there's something to be said about that. But, this team has a long memory. We don't want them to remember us hanging 70 on them. Well, guess what? You guys probably aren't the best of friends to begin with because you're all competing for the same goal, for the same title and everything else. You need to do what's right for you. And I don't know necessarily if running out the clock is, well, hell, the NC2A is speeding up games anyway, so who knows what's going to be left? How many plays are going to get taken out of a game because of not stopping the clock on first downs outside of the last 2 minutes of the first half and of the game? So I don't know. Michael freaking Campbell, our Notre Dame interloper, is back. Let's see what we got here. Lorenzo Styles Jr. couldn't get on the field as a wide receiver or as a defensive back. So explain what he's going to do at Ohio State in 2023. Cloverleaf. The floor for Notre Dame offensive talent is drastically better with Freeman. All right, let me kind of address this in a couple of steps here. One, Lorenzo Styles Jr. only was asked to move to defense post spring. So there was he couldn't get on the field. They determined that in 2 days, a day or 2 days. I don't think so. I'm not under the impression that Notre Dame pressured Lorenzo Styles Jr. to enter the transfer portal. The offers that Lorenzo Styles Jr. had out there would seem to indicate that he was a player in demand. Lorenzo Styles Jr. comes to Ohio State all in on playing defensive back. You can kind of redshirt him this year, play him for 4 games, develop him, and then as Ohio State will probably have a pretty large exodus in its secondary next year, have him right there in the mix. Now, the floor for Ohio State or for Notre Dame offensive talent is drastically better with Freeman. Didn't Notre Dame have Freeman last year when Notre Dame played Ohio State and put up 10 points? Better than what? What are they better than? I think that they're going to do some things better. I think year 2 under a head coach, there's a lot of room for improvement. You can figure some things out, but there's nothing about the Notre Dame offense that I'm going all caps about other than they're incredibly mediocre. And I probably should have yelled that because I said in all caps. They're incredibly mediocre. I'm sorry. I think Sam Hartman is going to be good, but I don't know who Sam Hartman's throwing the ball to. I don't know. I don't necessarily see it, but I digress. Let's kind of get through some things. Saturdays and Sundays in the fall haven't been good to you in a long time, Michael. That's kind of true. That's big games as well. But I will say this, at least the first half of the comment, hit that like button. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. Um, it's not lazy. I think that we just, people don't think about it. I watch a lot of videos. I spend a lot of time on YouTube as part of my job is, director of audio video content for BuckeyeHuddle.com. So I watch a lot of videos so I can get ideas. I don't really think about it, but I don't watch a lot of live. So hitting that thumbs up certainly does help us. Subscribe to the channel. As I said, we got to 9,000 subscribers on the channel. We couldn't have done it without all of you. Even those of you who haven't subscribed yet, but I know you're going to fix that, right? Give you 3 seconds to do that. 3, 2, 1, fix it. Let's go back here. Gonna get through some of there. It's my guy Treasure. How are you doing, Treasure? It has been a while. I'll shoot you a text this week. We haven't had a chance to talk offline, but really value your friendship and you being part of our community here and at BuckeyeHuddle.com. See, you can join guys like Treasure the Torah. You can join the always witty Glasswing Butterfly and so many others who are part of our great community. I'm doing well. I hope things are going well for you as well. All right, I'm going to do another Michael comment because he did tell everybody to hit the thumbs up. So I feel like I should validate that a little bit. Who goes to San Diego State for a tackle? That's desperation. Kyle McCord is going to be a sack dummy this season. Double-digit count hitting the turf. Well, all right. Here's the thing. Josh Simmons had a pretty nice offer list. Pickens were a little slim out there in terms of picking off offensive linemen, and everybody needs them. I don't think that I'm going to sit there and look at that and be like, well, Ohio State just rolled the dice on just some random guy. He is a guy that Justin Fry recruited while he was at UCLA. He went to Helix High School. I believe Reggie Bush came from that high school. That it is a school that turns out a lot of talent. I think there's some things that need to be cleaned up in Simmons' game, but I think that he has a good amount of upside. And Ohio State, honestly, not to necessarily play into Michael's hand here, Ohio State screwed the pooch big time in its recruitments of a lot of offensive linemen under Greg Sudara, period. Ohio State needs an immediate infusion, period. You don't know necessarily what's going to happen there. Ohio State brought in Victor Cutler, and the jury is still out on what Victor Cutler is going to be. But you got to go out there and take an opportunity. I think that you would have much more of a valid argument of where Ohio State's offensive line is if Ohio State didn't land Josh Simmons. But they're getting out there and trying to fix the situation. So I don't necessarily agree with where you are there. I think that you're going to probably see Kyle McCord or Devin Brown, whoever the starting quarterback is, having to run around a lot more just because it's going to be a little bit of a different line than what you're used to. You don't have Cleveland Brown, DeJuan Jones. You don't have Arizona Cardinal Paris Johnson Jr. You don't have, I'm trying to remember where Whippler went. Whippler went to the Browns. DeJuan, I don't remember where DeJuan went, but regardless, it's going to sort itself out. And to your point again, Michael, Ohio State has 3 games before it plays Notre Dame to kind of figure some things out. So we'll see. And if Notre Dame comes in and racks up 6 sacks in that game, you tip your cap and say, congratulations, you guys played a tremendous game. But until then, it's just bluster and chat, chat messages. So we'll see. Gonna keep moving through some things. 4 months till Indiana. Absolutely. Can't wait. Starting to think about the start of the season. I mean, granted, we got a lot of things there. I don't want to give up my summer, but Lord knows I love football. Dylan Stewart, I don't have a good read there. I don't have a good read there. I would absolutely take the field over Ohio State, but I don't have a good read. I don't necessarily have a lot of negative information of why I'm saying it's not going to be Ohio State. But I don't necessarily have a lot of great information of why it would be Ohio State. So in those instances, I generally take the field. Um, Absolutely. Mika Hanna, Noah Rogers is impressive, and so is Bryson too. I mean, here's the reality. I talked to a lot of people, a lot of expert types who said that Noah Rogers could be the best receiver in that class. Now, after what we saw out of Carnell Tate this spring, that's hard to believe. We haven't seen Brandon Inniss yet. I think Bryson probably needs, a little bit more work, but everything I saw of him when I went to go see a practice of his at Wiregrass Ranch was fantastic. It is a very, very impressive class. This 24 class, very, very impressive class. I'll say this: you better get to the table to eat now before Jeremiah Smith gets to campus. You better, you better get a taste for food at that point because it is going to be everything in your power to try and hold him off because he is a generational type of player. He is a generational type of player. Um, who are the starting receivers in 24? You see, it's hard for me to say that because if I don't put a Grays or an Antwi in there, it sounds like I've completely punted on that 22 class. And without seeing them play in 23, I don't know really what's there. I mean, you sit there and you say, "Oh, well, do you have Tate Ennis and Jeremiah Smith?" I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. Where does Noah Rogers? Where does Bryson Rogers? Where do the 22 guys fit into there? Where does Jeremiah McClellan or anybody else? Mylan Graham, where do they fit into the mix? It's hard to tell. I just gonna sit there and say that even once Ohio State loses Marv and Emeka, they're gonna be fine. You're maybe not gonna necessarily have Marvin Harrison out there, but you're going from one freak to another with Jeremiah Smith. And anybody who's not had a chance to watch Jeremiah Smith's footage, please, please watch. He is quite impressive. We're at an hour, 7 minutes. Wow, these shows fly by, but I'm going to try and get through some more questions here really quick. JG, have you heard anything about recent conference realignment and the future of playoffs and what happens to straggler schools that don't get absorbed by the SEC and or Big Ten? Well, we got our list of what 24 and 25, what the postseason is going to look like for the teams that make the college football playoff. And I'm looking for the email right now. Here it is from the College Football Playoff Committee. In 24, your first round on campus, you'll have one game on Friday, December 20th, and 3 games on the 21st. Then you go 10 days in the future on New Year's Eve. You have, for the quarters, you have the Fiesta Bowl, which is a Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, January 1st, you've got the Peach, the Rose, and the Sugar all as quarters. Then you go forward a little bit more than a week to the semis with a game on the 9th and a game on the 10th with the Orange and the Cotton. And then you go 10 days in advance of that, and that is the College Football Playoff Championship game in Atlanta. And it's pretty similar, too, with what you talk about for 25. But to get to conference realignment, things are changing and evolving so much there that by the time I finish this podcast, things could have changed. I don't know if we're really on the cusp of there being 2 conferences. I mean, I think that's going to happen at some point, or maybe 3 or some facsimile of that. But it doesn't seem like anybody is ready to break the dam on the Pac-12 yet. Break glass in case of emergency. What's going to be emergency when that awful TV contract comes in, when Pac-12 football is on Live, or I'm sorry, is on the CW with Live Golf and syndicated sitcoms. The number is going to come in so small. And there's one thing about, okay, you can negotiate a fantastic deal. You can negotiate a deal that is comparable to what you had with SC and UCLA in the conference. The problem is that if you're making the same money, which you're not, in my opinion, you're making the same money and everybody else is making more money, you're really not making that amount of you're not making the same amount of money because everybody else out there is gonna be making more than you. I mean, the Big 12 at least got its deal put together. So the new Big 10 commissioner comes out and says, basically that, that they gotta be focused on bringing SC and UCLA into the league. And, there's some more talk that the Big 10 doesn't necessarily want to upset the balance. But there's certainly a lot of talk about the Big 12 looking at the corner schools, looking at Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. If the Big 12 moves first, then it's now or never for the Big 10 to go and pull Washington and Oregon and Stanford and Cal or whatever it wants to do at that point. I don't think you're going to see the Big 10. This is highlighter think. I don't know. I don't think you're going to see them make a first move there. I think the only way that the Big 10 would make a first move is if Notre Dame is in play and the Big 10 has to bring dance partners in. Because at that point, it's all about your own brand and sorry about your damn luck and everything else. It's taking care of business. And if you get that one window to get Notre Dame into the conference, which a lot of people do, then you might have to sit there and say, all right, well, step aside. Men are at work now. We're gonna make our move. But that notwithstanding, I don't think you're going to see the Big 10 be the conference to scuttle the Pac-12. But I think you certainly would see the Big 10 go in there and absorb what it wants if the dam breaks and the rushing waters are coming towards the townspeople. Let me kind of get through some more here. I just remembered to hit the like button. General reminder for others who may not be as forgetful as I am. Yes, well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it for sure. That like button certainly helps us with our distribution, so that is big for us. Let me just kind of keep scrolling. Odysseus, Cowboys picking Michigan players. Your thoughts? Next question. Doug, first time I heard amphetamines pronounced hypnosis, Kevin. Oh, okay, I got it. All right, I had to kind of think back. I'm high on Mountain Dew and Pixie Sticks. Let me keep going through here. We'll just keep going here. Ben Higgins, better Mexican food, Columbus or SoCal? I'm kidding. But what are your favorite spots in both places? Ben, I moved away from SoCal such a long time ago that I don't know what's out there anymore. I get out there for like a Rose Bowl or something like that. There was a place out by LA Live that was like an original Mexican restaurant that was really good. I grew up going to El Torito. I like El Torito. I mean, it probably could have gone downhill, but I was talking to Josh Simmons about El Torito, and he seemed to like it. So at least I had one vote of confidence there. As for Columbus, there's Los Gauchos that does tacos al pastor. That it was a former food truck that has a couple brick and mortar places. It's pretty good. It's kind of a oasis. I mean, it's just not great here for Mexican food. I can't find good cheese enchiladas. I can't find good red sauce. It is what it is. I mean, I like going to El Vaquero. I have fun when I go there. There's some places that I'll go to, but sadly, if you sit there and you say you can pick any Mexican place that you want to go to, like a sit down place, I generally take Chewy's, which is like an Austin, Texas chain, just because they're consistent and I know what I'm going to get there. So there you go. Jordan Kapler talking crap to me. Love you too, buddy. Love you too. And I know it all comes from love. Let's see. Let's keep scrolling. Gary K. Hey, Kevin. Hope you and the rest of the crew are well. Speaking of the OL, how much longer when we have real no concerns on OL recruiting, 2 more good OL classes? I think if they could stack 2. I think if this year and next year they stack it and they hit even the average rate, and that's like sitting there saying, "Okay, these are your top 35 national programs. This is the rate that they hit on their offensive linemen. You take an average number of that, not then Ohio State will be fine." I think that they just need. I think you're going to see them potentially have to go back to the portal again next year as you're still trying to solidify some of these things. Let guys like Ryan Montgomery come up to speed as their true freshmen this year. I think a couple more classes and things will be fine. Um, but then again, if they start turning things around, does Justin Fry become a candidate for bigger jobs out there? And then do you start over? It's why it's so important. You got to stay fresh and stay current with your coaches. And you really, I'm not, look, I understand they're people, and I get to talk to these guys as people. And I'm never one to sit there and advocate for anybody losing a job or anything like that. It sucks. It's tough out there and everything else. But college football certainly is a business. And if you're not out there recruiting, you're not out there developing, and you're not out there winning games, it's you know learn to code. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Let me keep going through some things here. And I apologize if I'm skipping your questions. I certainly am going to try and cap this show at an hour 30, which is 14 more minutes. Sue, there are snow flurries in Toledo right now. That's terrible. Terrible. It's cold here, but I've been working in my office all day. My wife's working remotely, so she's home. So she's had to take the dog out. So I don't know exactly how cold it is right now. Let me see what else we got here. All right. I knew Michael Campbell would take the low hanging fruit of me talking about conference. Last thing, I'll get to your super chat in a second. Notre Dame is never joining a conference to make less money. It's not good business. We make 54 million now in profits and about to land a new 60 to 75 million dollar NBC deal and a new apparel deal. I'm not going to speak on the apparel deal because I don't know anything about it. Everybody has an apparel deal. Some are more lucrative than others. I'm sure Notre Dame's is going to be plenty lucrative. But that has nothing to do with joining a conference. Everybody's got an apparel deal. I don't think the Big Ten is necessarily going to offer a deal. It's not going to have a deal put together of where Notre Dame is going to have to take a major haircut in terms of what it is that it's bringing in. The Big Ten is bringing in plenty of money per school. What is it supposed to be? Like 100 million? I mean, like close to 100 million per school in terms of your media payouts. So enjoy your 60 to 75 million dollar deal if that's what it in fact ends up being. And I know that they are going to get a bit of an increase from what the old NBC deal is. But if NBC honestly could be very happy to see Notre Dame go to the Big Ten since it's got part of the Big Ten deal and be able to maybe rework what it has there or come to the negotiating table for the next go round and become a super partner, kind of the way Fox is. So never say never. The old school Lou Holtz and Pryor fans, I think, have this belief that Notre Dame never should join a conference. I think that once you get beyond Lou Holtz, I don't think the younger fans care all that much. There was a day and age where Notre Dame was the only national school because games were on the radio and Notre Dame had a national distribution deal, sort of. I mean, with whatever a national distribution deal truly would have been at those days when you were listening to the Lone Ranger on the radio and that's all you had. It's going to change. We've seen Jack Swarbrick throw some trial balloons out there in some ways. Notre Dame will never get a home game or will never be a top four, will never get a bye in this 12-team playoff because it is not in a conference. That was a concession that Jack Swarbrick made, and I use the term concession with kind of tongue in cheek because people would have lost their mind if Notre Dame just got a top four seed for its non-conference schedule mixed up with some ACC trash and, USC and maybe a Big Ten school and Boston College and Navy. So I think there's going to become a point of where Notre Dame is going to be like, our brains beat in trying to get into the playoffs. We don't even have an avenue to get the first round bye. Maybe now is time. And I think that time is coming. But I will say this, and this will be how I will end on this topic as I go through my last couple of questions. The Big Ten needs to make its final, best, last offer to Notre Dame. I'm not saying today, I'm not saying tomorrow, but soon. You're in or you're out. If you're in, congratulations. One of us, one of us, one of us. If you're out, we will stop scheduling you. We will stop giving you a footprint in your geographical area. Go to the SEC. Have fun. Have fun. You think very highly of yourself and your academics and everything else there, which Notre Dame's got fantastic academics. That's not me taking a swipe at them. Join the SEC, which has a mixture of, has its Vanderbilts, then it has its Mississippi States in terms of academics. There's not a single link that Notre Dame has with the profile of the SEC. And I think if we see conferences, two super conferences emerge and Notre Dame wants to sit there and twiddle its thumbs and be independent, all right, great. But you're going to be on the outside looking in. And there are people involved with that university and that department that are too smart to let that happen. So puff your chest, thump your chest all you want. They're going to eventually join a conference, period. Super chat from Glasswing Butterfly, some traveling bucks. Where's Crazy Kitty today? First of all, thank you for the super chat. The Crazy Kitty is locked out of the room right now because we have the 16-year-old female who hates everything except me and my wife. And then we have the 8-month-old kitten who loves terrorizing the older cat. I just figured if I was going to do a live show and do it even semi-decent, I should probably minimize distractions, even though text messages have been rolling in all afternoon, which have distracted me, but at least it's not the cats. But I will make sure that I open the door for one of these upcoming live shows. We're going to get through a couple more things. Doug Shepard believes Notre Dame is afraid to join the Big because it would mean 4 league losses every year. I think Notre Dame could find some benefit by being in the conference. I really do. Because I also think in a lot of ways if Notre Dame joins the Big Ten Conference, they may have to look at some of their admission deals. And I know Northwestern doesn't play ball necessarily. You have to be admitted to Northwestern to be admitted to Northwestern as an athlete. Other places, there's some graduated systems in terms of, all right, these are the NC2A minimums. We need you to kind of be here, but maybe not here. I think it could help Notre Dame in some ways to kind of to fall in line with where a conference is in terms of what, the general rank and file admission policies are. Again, I think though a lot of that goes back to the bluster of the Newt Rockne days and everything else. And when people had, how do I say this without sounding like an ass? When people had memory of Notre Dame being successful, you go to a lot of recruits right now, they don't remember Notre Dame being successful. A lot of fans may. I mean, I'm 51. I certainly remember some successful years for Notre Dame. I was in high school. I mean, there's some limitations to all of that. But I think that in a lot of ways, it would probably help the product for Notre Dame in a lot of ways if it joined a league. Again, may not be today, may not be tomorrow, but it needs to be soon. I think it needs to be soon. Let me keep going here. All right, I'm being corrected on profits. Let me see the P&L statement for Notre Dame. You can send it to me at kevin@buckeyegrove.com. Show me the P&L statement so I can see all the profits. You got to remember, like you look at a school like Ohio State. Ohio State has 36 varsity sports. If Ohio State wanted to have 22, it could have a lot of money in a war chest. But football, and to a much lesser degree, men's basketball pay for everything else. So profits are all well and good, but you sometimes are spending, you're spending money to make money, and it's just kind of how it is. You talk about spend money on travel. Yes, you're going to have to spend money on travel when you have 36 varsity sports, and not everybody in the Big Ten has 36 varsity sports. I understand that. Certainly during COVID, there was a lot of talk of should Ohio State contract and lose a couple sports. Gene Smith, one of his biggest things is he is damn proud and happy to be the athletic director of the largest athletic department in college sports. And it is. I mean, Ohio State is the biggest one. So, yeah, it would be great to have a big rainy day fund and be able to have all of that money, but don't don't confuse profitability with what the mission is here. That's just, that is just, a trap. It's a trap. We've really gotten into Ohio State versus Notre Dame, so yeah, we got that going on now. We're just going to kind of go there. All right, I am caught up more or less. So let me start to wind down here in the final 5 minutes. Again, thank you for tuning in here on the Big Me Kickoff. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode. If you're listening on the podcast channels, leave us a 5-star review. That certainly helps people find us with the algorithm. Again, we got up to 9,000 subscribers on the channel going into this show. So thank you to everybody who has been part of that. Be sure to check us out on Buckeye Huddle as well for the price of just a crummy delivery pizza a month. One that's probably getting in cold. The cheese is all coagulated. Not very good. You could be part of the best Buckeye community on the internet. Deal with fans from all over, not only all over Ohio, but all over the country and all over the world. Get all the recruiting expertise of Mark Givler and Alex Gleitman. All of the great team coverage from Tom Orr and Tony Gerdeman, the X's and O's from Ross Fulton, Mikey Pettit, Justin Whitlatch, Devin Ratcliffe, anybody else I'm forgetting. All of that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Doug Shepard saying, come back soon, please. Outside of when I'm on the road, I'm going to do one live show a week. Let's say one live and 2 taped. I know. You guys have put some wind in my sails. I managed to do an hour 30 without having anything prepared whatsoever. So I feel pretty good about where things stand. Now, I will put some special dispensations in maybe in early July when there's not a whole hell of a lot going on. But hell, we always entertain ourselves. So plenty to talk about there. Trying to think about what's coming up here soon. Again, just we're going to find out what's going to happen with Tywone Malone here soon, the big defensive tackle out of New Jersey, formerly of Ole Miss. Does Ohio State add defensive back with the UAB transfer, having Ohio State in the top 6? Does that visit end up happening? A lot of things to watch there. We're not that far away from the start of camp season in terms of recruiting. Looking forward to all of that. Certainly going to be on the road covering a lot of recruiting coming up here in the very near future. So you don't want to miss out on any of that. So, we're going to come up just a little short of an hour 30, but I want to thank everybody for being part of my triumphant live return to the podcasting waves. And until the next time, have a great day, and I'll talk to you very soon.